Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful new way to structure an AI's mind. It's this method that basically teaches an AI how to organize its own imagination into different layers, kind of moving it a step closer to how our own brains make sense of the world around us.
So, let's get right to it. What's the big challenge for today's generative AI? Well, a lot of the time, their internal mind is, frankly, a bit of a mess. So the question is, how do we teach them to organize their thoughts? To separate the big picture from the tiny little details? That's the core problem we're going to unpack.
You see, most of these AIs have something called a latent space. The easiest way to think about it is as their mind, or maybe their imagination. Now the problem is, this space is often just this unstructured, chaotic jumble of information, which makes it incredibly difficult to control or, well, to even understand what the AI is really thinking.
Let me put it this way. A standard AI's mind is like a junk drawer. Seriously, every single idea, from the overall layout of a room to the texture of the wood grain on the floor, is just tossed in there together. The goal then is to turn that chaos into a perfectly organized filing cabinet.
Okay, so how in the world do we build that filing cabinet for an AI? Well, the solution comes from a really fascinating place: signal processing. It's a concept that's inspired by techniques that have been around for decades, and it even takes some cues from how our very own brains process what we see.
The method itself is called the trifrequency prior. At its heart, it's basically a rule, that's what the prior means, that teaches the AI to automatically sort all the information it gets into three distinct, really meaningful layers, or what they call frequency bands.
And what's so cool about this is just how intuitive these layers are. You've got the low-frequency band, which handles the big picture, the overall layout of a scene. Then there's the mid-frequency band, which focuses on the main objects and their shapes. And the high-frequency band? That's for all the tiny little details, like textures and fine patterns. It really does mirror how we see the world.
And look, this isn't just some idea they pulled out of thin air. It's grounded in principles that are totally proven. It's the same kind of logic that makes JPEG image compression work. Breaking an image down into different frequency layers. It's also inspired by the hierarchical way our own visual cortex processes information at all these different scales.
So, here's the crucial part. How does the model actually enforce these layers? It uses something called beta weights to create what they call a gradient of constraints. Basically, it's super strict with the low-frequency, big-picture stuff. I mean, chairs don't just float in midair, right? But it's way more flexible and creative with the high-frequency details, allowing for all sorts of variation in things like fur or fabric textures.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This whole organizing principle, it goes way beyond just images. It turns out to be a universal framework for perception, one that you can apply across completely different senses. So we've already seen how this works for images, right? It neatly separates the overall scene layout from the shapes of the objects inside it, and then finally, all the little textures on their surfaces.
But now, check this out. The exact same three-part framework maps beautifully onto audio. Low frequency becomes the rhythm and tempo, that underlying beat. Mid-frequency is the melody, or the syllables, in someone's speech. And high frequency, that's the unique sound of an instrument, its timbre, or the sharp attack of a consonant. It just fits perfectly.
And yep, you guessed it, it even works for video. The low-frequency band represents that global motion, like a big camera pan. The mid-frequency band tracks the movement of specific objects, and the high-frequency band captures all those fine frame-by-frame details. It's this one universal structure for perception. So what does all this structure actually get you? Well, it gives creators this incredible, almost tangible level of control. We can actually isolate and rebuild an image using only its low-frequency blueprint. We could smoothly change the pose of a person without changing their clothes. Or, and this is wild, we could even swap bands between different images, take the structure of a cat, the body of a dog, and the texture of a tiger to create something totally new.
Okay, so what's the end game here? What's the big picture implication of all this? This is where we start moving beyond just single senses and start thinking about a much more integrated kind of artificial intelligence.
See, by using the same organizing principle, that same filing cabinet system for sight, for sound, and even for text, what we're really doing is creating a common internal language for an AI. It's this shared space where the idea of big picture and fine detail means the same thing, no matter which sense we're talking about.
And this really gets to the heart of what the researchers are after. As they put it, the ultimate goal is to move towards an AI that has a much more holistic way of understanding the world. They're aiming for a unified model that really starts to mirror the integrated way that human intelligence works.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. Structuring an AI's mind this way isn't just about making better pictures or cleaner sounds. It's a step toward a fundamentally new kind of intelligence. So, if an AI can learn to see and hear and read using the exact same core principles, what does it truly begin to understand?